Today's conversation is sponsored by First Generation Capital Partners.
I have no shame in picking up the phone and just calling a bunch of realtors and asking questions about stuff I don't know about, because that's how I learned when I was 17, 18, 19 years old. When I made that purchase, that's how I learned. There was no podcast and YouTube was just starting out.
You're listening to the Going Long podcast with Billy Keels, the #1 podcast for long-distance real asset investing.
Welcome to the Going Long podcast. We're back once again to continue to help to educate you so you feel much more comfortable as well as confident investing beyond your backyard. And yes, I'm your host, Billy Keels, and I am super excited to welcome you back to another episode. This is awesome. It's another guest episode. This is going to be really, really cool. And I want to jump right into the episode. I also just want to let everybody know, really appreciate you continuing to share across social media with your screenshots, tagging us, and all that stuff. We really appreciate it. It continues to attract more and more members of the Going Long family, and we really appreciate that about you. Also, if you want to, just leave us an honest written review as well as a rating. We've done that you can do that across the Apple Podcast platform, Spotify. We even have a little video that you can check out here. Just click the link. And also too, for those of you who have wanted to see or listen to some of the previous episodes, any of the episodes, and over 260 at this point, just go to firstgencp.com/podcasts, and you can check out every single episode, get the transcript, all that kind of good stuff. So firstgencp.com/podcasts, and it will be awesome. So listen, for those of you who have ever had to work through college, get more education. Maybe you've gone to college because your parents wanted you to go to college and you continue to be successful and you found this alternative asset known as real estate. If you want to find out how you can do that and even do it in a different country across the country, today's conversation is one you're really going to enjoy. So we're going to get to that conversation with Matthew Ablakan, and we're going to get to that just after this. So if you've been really, really interested in understanding how putting people first can lead to accelerating your long-distance investing success, then guess what? Today's a conversation you're going to want to listen to until the very last word. You know why? Because today's guest not only has superior negotiating skills and understands the importance of supply and demand by being able to, he did this by understanding and playing Pokemon and using Pokemon cards. Yes, I did say that. And he's going to tell us a little bit more about that. All the way through university, he held multiple part-time jobs to pay for his education. That's something that resonates with me because I did the exact same thing, by the way. And at 19, he invested in his very first real estate deal in pre-construction condos. Really want to hear more about that. It gives me great pleasure to welcome to today's conversation the founder and owner of Millennial Choice Group, Mr. Matthew Ablakan. Matthew, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, Billy, thanks for having me, and kudos to you for creating all this content. It's not easy. And I think we both agree that if we had this earlier, we would be light years ahead of where we are now. So for those of you listening and watching this, don't take it with a grain of salt. Absorb it, listen to it more than once, share it with your friends and family. Let's go.
Yeah, I love it, Matthew. So let's jump into it, man. And I really appreciate that. And yes, at least listen to today's conversation like 3 or 4 times because Matthew knows that, now he's going to know we're overachievers here in the Going Long family. So listen, Matthew, just a couple things. I think you may know this already, but I really, really like to ask every single guest, and today you're our special guest, at least 5 questions. You're going to get 2 in the beginning. You're going to get 3 in the end. And you know what? In the middle, you're going to get a lot of questions. I just don't know what those are because they're going to be based on your answers. But I want the Going Long family to get to know you. So help us understand. And I'm going to adapt today's question. Help us understand, where is it that you live in North America?
So we live in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. That's why I got the Canadian flag right behind me. And Toronto is basically the place to be in Canada. It's where Drake is from. We've had a couple of very popular politicians in the news in the last few years. And so Toronto is the place to be. If you're going to come to Canada, you got to check out Toronto.
All right, fantastic. So we can do that. And I guess you probably can help us get a private concert with Drake as well. I'm going to assume. Well, no pressure. Don't answer that. Don't answer that, by the way, Matthew.
All right.
I don't want to put any extra pressure on you. No, here's the thing also too. Love to start out with positivity here or continue with positivity. So help us understand, what's the most positive thing that's happened to you in the last 24 hours?
So in the last 24 hours, my wife and I were in the hospital. We were doing a checkup on her. We had to go to the ER as a follow-up, and our baby that's soon to be due is healthy. Things are going well. Coming off an unfortunate loss prior to this one. it's doing much, much better than the first time around, and so is the mother. So that's the most positive news I've had in the last 24 hours.
Man, that's absolutely fantastic. I appreciate you sharing your vulnerability with us, just to kind of kick things off and make the most of every single moment. I'm sure you can appreciate that. So thanks for that, Matthew. And listen, man, I also wanted to let you know, I kind of have this, well, I'm a recovering perfectionist, by the way. And what that means is sometimes I do things that are a little bit outlandish. Things like trying to tell your entire backstory, Matthew, in like 1.5 seconds. That was never, ever going to happen, right? You've done way too much. You've impacted too many lives. But it's one of the character flaws I have. Hey, that's what happens. But here's the thing. I am going to ask you for your help because I would love for you to tell your backstory in your own words. And you get to use a lot more than 1.5 seconds. I just kind of do that as an intro to get things started. So tell your backstory in your own words. Take as much time as you need. And also, one of the things that would be really helpful is if you would also provide us with some of the different decisions that you've made to get to this point in your journey. And then we'll see where you and I take the conversation from there.
Sure. So I always share the beginning of my story obviously started with my parents. Both of my parents are from Iraq, from the Christian faith, and they actually both left Iraq separately. They didn't know each other back home in Iraq. They left separately just to start better lives for themselves and their future families. They didn't have a family at that time besides their parents and their brothers and sisters. So my dad went to Montreal, came to Toronto. First he went to Greece, then Montreal, then Toronto. My mom went to Iran and then to Canada and Toronto. And so they met here at a local church. They had my brother and I'm the oldest. So we're not, first generation Canadians from parents who have been established or were coming from someplace that was established. They left everything back home. They burned their family photos so they could never be identified. And it was just a struggle that they had to experience coming to this country. And they left a socialist communistic regime. And so I share that because one of the biggest things immigrants are challenged with, or in their case, their status was refugees, or their challenge was that their educational credentials didn't transfer over. So they were teachers in Iraq. They could not be teachers here unless they went through the system. They did not know English. And so they became what most immigrants become when they first come to a new country. They became entrepreneurs. And they did so out of pure necessity, not because it was the cool thing to do like in today's day and age. It was out of pure necessity. So on the weekends, my brother and I would be accompanying them to like wholesalers where they would buy goods like chocolate bars and chips and snacks and laundry detergent, anything, and they would sell it in their convenience store for a profit. So I saw this at a very, very early age. We were rewarded when we'd go to these wholesalers. We were actually rewarded with Pokemon cards leading into the next potential question. And so we would learn the concepts of buy low and sell high at a very early age. Now we didn't know we were learning that. We didn't know how to identify that. It was just subconscious. And I would see my parents doing that every single weekend. Fast forward a little bit. We never had a poor childhood, and our parents spoiled us as best as they could. And I'm very, very grateful for that. But growing up, we had to pay for almost everything we needed and wanted. So in high school, I had 2 lockers. I was selling JanSport backpacks. I was selling espresso machines, hair straighteners, all kinds of stuff out of my locker. And even after school. And then thankfully, the teachers never found out or school didn't find out, because God forbid that a child starts or teenager becomes entrepreneurial. It's not a good thing for the world, apparently. Right. But anyways, then I get into university because my parents forced us to go to university. And where they're from, if you have an education that's from a university, like a bachelor or something like that, it's actually respectable. It's not something that's, every person's getting and it's useless and you're getting into so much debt. No, it's actually valuable where they come from. So they forced me to do it. I did it. I had to pay for it. And so I was always trying to find ways to make money or earn more money. And the concept that I learned in university that was a paradigm shift for me was that landlords make money while they sleep. And I wanted to learn more about that. And so I was already dabbling in a little bit of mutual funds and quote unquote high interest savings accounts at 1%. And that's not high interest at all. And that was the next step for me. I said, how do people live off of $30,000 a year? And I was working these 2 part-time jobs from American companies, Johnny Rockets and Lucky Strikes Bowling Alley, just to pay for tuition. And so that concept, when I really came across it, landlords make money while they sleep. I said, how do I get my hands on real estate? And this was 17 years old and 18 years old. And then at 19, I finally pulled the trigger and bought my first pre-construction condo. And that pre-construction type of real estate here in Canada works very differently from other parts of the world, especially the States, because we have so much bureaucracy and political red tape here that if somebody's building a condo project that's 24 stories, it'll take 4 years to construct after they've sold the building. So 4 years to construct after sales. And prior to that, it takes years of the developer actually going through the process to get the zoning and getting the approvals and then finally going to sales. So it gave me the opportunity to buy something without a mortgage, without the full down payment. And I was getting into the career of real estate, which it bought me time. And as you know, it's all about time in the market, not timing the market. So it worked out for me that way.
Fantastic, man. So there's a lot of different things that we can pull from that. But I guess the one thing that I want to just make sure that I understood. So as you were in college, you were studying your degree and you recognized that you wanted to find out how these people were making money while they slept, and these people are landlords. Is that correct?
Yeah, I was in my second year and I saw that I was in one of my courses, and I remember which course I was in. It was like a bird course, they called it. And I was just stressed out financially. Like I said, I had to pay for my tuition and I was trying to find ways to do that. So that's the concept that I came across. My bachelor's is I graduated, I have them behind me actually. And one of them is in law and society. So it was the precursor for law school. And then one of them is from teachers college. So I am a certified high school teacher, never applied to the board to get a job, but I did graduate with those 2 degrees.
So it's really interesting. So you have 2 degrees. I have 2 degrees. In college, I worked in the phys ed facility. So I was cleaning wrestling mats, right, to pay for part of my college. I also had, I had grants and some scholarships, grants, and then a whole bunch of loans. And, I think a lot of times we may not think, because while I was there, I was only focused on I had to get the dream job, to work for a big company. And so it's interesting because you saw your parents growing up entrepreneurial. You were learning these things without you even recognizing you were learning stuff like buy low, sell high, right? For better, for worse, whatever, but you were learning that. And within the constructs of a university, right? Sometimes you're in this bubble. And I'm just curious, maybe if you can expand a little bit more on that, because and the reason I ask about that, Matthew, is so many of us go down this trek of go to school, go to college, get the great job, and blah, 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 blah. And so the fact that you were able to get that clarity while you were in the university or the college bubble, you actually saw something that most people never even pay attention to, which is how do you generate income that's decoupled from the amount of time that you're putting in? And seeing that before you're 20 is pretty phenomenal. Could you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. So I hated school. I hated school from day one. My grade 6 teacher told me that I was going to end up bagging his wife's groceries at No Frills and her makeup at Shoppers Drug Mart, which is like the equivalent of Walgreens in the States. And my guidance counselor in my first year of university told me that, law school was for smart people. Like there's no point in you applying for it. I hated school. That doesn't mean I wasn't smart. Like if a lot of people are kind of experiencing those similar experiences, it doesn't mean you're not smart. It just means that's not the right setting for you necessarily. So I did do it in a way to please my parents. Gotcha. And nonetheless, I feel like a lot of immigrants and a lot of kids of immigrants, they kind of go through the same thing. But I knew from day one that I wanted to be entrepreneurial. I knew even my major was in law, but I enjoyed law. I enjoyed studying criminal law specifically. And I knew that if I was going to go to law school, I was never going to represent criminals. But at the same time, I would never want to work for the government to prosecute the criminals. I wanted to have my own firm. So that wasn't an option for me. I didn't want to do any other form of law. And so, yeah, I think early on, out of just sheer necessity, needing income, needing money, and saying, how do I go about that? Like I'm at a ceiling. I can't earn more working at these restaurants. I can't really do much more. I'm serving, I'm getting tips, and it's fine. But like I said, I have no social life. I'm doing 2 degrees, 2 jobs. I have nothing, and volunteering for Teachers College. I have nothing to really show for it at this time. And I was fed up. I was really, really fed up. I used to look at the ceiling every morning when I'd wake up to go to work. I'd see the popcorn ceiling and I'd say, this is the day that nobody hears from me. And they're not even getting a 2 weeks notice. I've checked out 2 years ago. And so I would still show up. I did, properly leave those jobs and have good relationships with those folks still till this day. But it was out of pure necessity. And when I bought the condo, like yourself, I had bursaries, I had grants, I had some loans. And then at the same time, I had some money saved. So I was able to use that for the first deposit, which was only 15 grand. I had that money. But then shortly thereafter, I was already in the real estate program, even in university. I got licensed. So I got licensed at a young age. I was 19 years of age and I graduated university. I think I was maybe 23. And so I had a really tough time staying in school. Like I hated school. I saw no purpose of it, or for it, I should say, for me. But I stayed, I persevered, I got it done. And, hindsight's 2020. It's had some benefits and some perks to having those degrees. But nonetheless, I'm grateful for where I'm at now.
Yeah. So, and so the fact that you are grateful for where you are now, and you've gone through a number of different life occurrences to get here, is fantastic, right? Accept and understand how you got to here, and then do what you need to do to continue to change the trajectory. But would it be safe to say that you did the education, the formal education thing? That was a parent pleaser thing. Was that what that was? Okay. So that was about pleasing parents. So I get that. That ticks the box. Talk to us about the transition that happened from, okay, you've got the 2 degrees, you did what you're supposed to do. You started getting this experience and figuring out how people actually make money while they sleep. That was part of even what you studied. But then you were in these jobs. So talk about the transition from the jobs to actually starting to not do things to please other people, but start to live the life that you really want to be living. Because you curated that early compared to a lot of people.
Yeah. So I was licensed at 19 years of age in real estate. So I'm still in university, but at the same time, I still have these 2 jobs. Now I got licensed in October, and the 2 jobs I was working at were in the same location. And we have malls and outlet malls here, very, very popular. So it was very close to home. And those 2 jobs in the winter season, start to get, busier in November and then December because of Christmas and stuff. The malls get really, really busy. So it's an opportunity to make a lot more money because you got lots more people in the mall. There's lots more people coming into your store. They need to eat, and then they're tipping you. So what I did is I got licensed. I did my first deal and it closed first week of December. So I got licensed mid-October, October 20 in 2012. And then I closed my first deal December 6th. My cousin was selling her condo. She bought a home a year prior from the builder. It was pre-construction. It was finally getting ready. It was going to be ready very soon. So she needed to sell the condo she was in. So when I first got licensed, all I did was text everybody that I had in my phone. Doesn't matter if I hadn't spoken with them for how long. I just texted every single person. I said, this is what I'm doing now. I'm in real estate. If there's anything I can help you with, let me know. And I told them the company that I'm with, it's been around for 40 years. They're backing me up. They're helping me, supporting me. So if there's anything you need, let me know. My cousin was my first client. So I never quit those 2 part-time jobs though, early on, because what I did is I said, I want to make some money this Christmas season. I'm a manager at both. I'm serving at both. So at the time, like even prior to that, I was getting much more than minimum wage. I was a manager, supervisor, much more than minimum wage, but also I was getting tips. And so I was earning as much as I could with the people that would come into the stores. And I ended up quitting both jobs on a Monday right after the Christmas season. It dies down. They were slow. They were okay with it. I didn't even give 2 weeks notice. On a Monday, walked into both respectfully. And I said, guys, I stayed. I helped you guys. I'm out. So a lot of people don't do that. A lot of people don't go cold turkey. They go part-time. They get their feet wet. But I was balancing. And I don't forget it. One of them, it was a bar. It was the bowling alley / bar that was open till like 2-3 a.m. sometimes. And I remember going outside when in the middle of my shift, answering phone calls from my cousin's condo that she was selling, answering phone calls from the realtor. And I mean, I ended up closing it right away. So I was fortunate enough that I had that right away, that experience immediately after getting licensed. But quit both jobs, same day, couple months after I got licensed. And then the rest was history. I was still going to school. I was still trying to, complete my degree, but I'm focused on building my real estate business. I didn't get to be full-time because of school until maybe, like I said, like 3-4 years later. But I always knew when I got licensed, my buddy who's a doctor and he's still my best friend now, he says, do you remember when you got licensed, you told me you always wanted to open a brokerage? You were never going to just be a solo agent. I said, I don't remember telling you that, but obviously we're a brokerage now. So I assume it was correct.
Yeah. And so, as you figure, and a lot of times people will remember the things that you say, even when you forget, right? And as you were on this path, once again, to figuring out how you could decouple your time from generating income, you went into what I would deem, because I spent 26 years in client-facing roles. The last 21 years, I was in a number of IT companies, but always in client-facing roles, so sales and sales leadership. And so from a brokerage perspective, you're really responsible for generating interest and generating revenue. At the same time, you happen to have a very strong passion for education, which sometimes people just go into brokerage and all they care about is the numbers, right? And I know that you have to do that because you have to generate income, and your teams do that. At the same time, not everybody has this passion and desire to continue to educate. I know that that's something that's really big for you, which some people may find ironic because you didn't like education, right? Formal education. Maybe you could talk to us about maybe that juxtaposition and why you have such a passion of helping to educate others, including investors today.
Yeah. So I took that, everything I learned from Teachers College, I took it and I apply it to my sales approach now. And I really don't like the word sales. We're just guiding people to where they want to go. But it's an education-based approach to selling. So that means you're going to give all the information, because historically, before the internet, you read, from books like Brian Tracy and stuff like that. You read that most salespeople would like to withhold information at that time. And then that's how they were seen as the experts, because there wasn't, any ability for consumers to really look up what these people were saying. And so that changed with the internet. And so the way that I chose to stand out, and I choose to stand out, including now with Millennials Choice, is we educate and give all the information as much as we can to our audiences. And then we want people, because of that, we want people to say, you know what, these guys know what they're talking about. They're the experts. We want to work with them. And so that's been very, very invaluable for me, because you can't put a number on it. Like, you can't put a number on how valuable that is when people see you as the expert in the field. You just capture more market share. The numbers are the byproducts of all these things that you're doing, and that'll come. I've never budgeted. I've never created a business plan ever, and I refuse to, because I know that if I stick to my guns and I become more valuable as a person in society, and take care of people, treat them right, and I'll be looked after. My career is going to be great. I'm fine with that. So we just celebrated 10 years in the industry. We've had our best years these last few years. And
Congratulations.
Thank you. And including this year was a difficult one, because we saw a lot of aggressive rate hikes in Canada and other parts of the world, but starting in March of 2022. So fast forward now, 8 months later, you're seeing that the market's kind of stabilizing a little bit where we are. People are realizing that the world's not coming to an end. And even though we have a major supply issue, we're starting to see more and more activity come to the market. But I've never been a victim, and I'm never going to say, oh, it's because the economy is bad that, I'm not doing well as a realtor. I've never been a victim. I reject that mindset. And so I just build solid foundations and education. Again, I stick to it. If the market's a little bit slower and our volumes are down across the board, which is what happens, then you know what? I'm going to double down on my podcast. I'm going to double down on going on other people's podcasts and invest in marketing and capture more market share, because when everybody is shrinking, including the economy, the government, and whatever, then I'm going to do the complete opposite, because I want that contrarian lifestyle and that viewpoint. So that's how we choose to operate our business. And yeah, that brings us to where we are today.
Yeah. So, and I think having that focus and, one, being able to say, hey, listen, even though you didn't like that formal kind of education, you understand the importance of being able to continue to educate. And there's lots of different forms of education, right? I agree with you, not necessarily just because you sit in the classroom and watch a teacher all day, that's the best way for you to learn knowledge. I prefer to actually learn by doing. But when you are able to help to educate others and also recognize what's happening in the environment, whether it be micro or macro, then you also are able to pivot, making sure that you're always doing the things that you can to add value to others. So it makes huge amount of sense. And one of the other things I was going to ask you, right, is very similar to the education, to the real estate. I happen to know that, or at least I understand, that you're not necessarily just focused exclusively in one location in Canada, that you have a network and you're helping to educate throughout Canada as a geography. And so, and the reason I ask that is, to me, that seems pretty contrarian, because as we both know that, especially in I like real assets in general, but in real estate, like markets and locations are super hyper local. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, I'm a guy who lives in Europe and I invest exclusively in multiple locations back in the United States. Like, that's what I choose to do. Yeah. But I also recognize, Matthew, and you too, right? That's contrarian. Like, a lot of people just say, like, don't go more than an hour from your home. So help us understand, what is it that has allowed you, like, the mental fortitude to say, hey, look, I'm not going to just be like stuck to one specific location that's here, and really help to create value throughout Canada, at least as I've understood it. So, and if I've misunderstood it, please correct me.
No, you got it right, Billy. So there's two hats that I wear to answer this question. The first hat is as a real estate agent, broker, realtor. There's always that idea of, you should pick a few streets, couple of streets, and farm them. There's this idea of farming. And I'm like, why can't we? So early in my career, I said, why can't we farm the country? That was the mindset that I had. Why can't we farm the province? Why can't we farm all of the city, or whatever the case may be? And then the company that I joined and the reason why I joined them is because I bought my condo from them in the first place. They had a lot of builders that they would represent as their agent. So they would sell the project for the builder. And that's where I wanted to be, in that pre-construction world, and get a bunch of experience from them. So, you have a builder that's opening up in, I want to give you an example. Like, let's say Brooklyn, and then you have another builder opening up in Manhattan, and the same company represents both builders. So how is it that I, as an agent that works for that company, should only focus on two streets? Then the product that company is offering, that we have an inside scoop on, I can't really offer it to my clients because I'm not educated in the Brooklyn market. Now, that's the example I'm giving because that's what it was here. So you'd have a project that's about half an hour away from where we are now today, and then another one that's 5 minutes down the road, and then one that's an hour and a half. But we have all this inventory. I should be knowledgeable in all of these projects. Why can't I be knowledgeable in all these projects? So that's really the mindset that I had. And, it's proven to be extremely valuable, because now when we go to another province like Alberta and we look at the Calgary or Edmonton market, we're able to gauge now that market, because everything is online. If I want to find information about something, everything is now online. And I have no shame in picking up the phone and just calling a bunch of realtors and asking questions about stuff I don't know about, because that's how I learned when I was 17, 18, 19 years old. When I made that purchase, that's how I learned. There was no podcast, and YouTube was just starting out. I'm turning 31 now. So if you look back, that's 13, 14 years. There was no YouTube really. So that was the whole point of me wanting to grow bigger. Now, as an investor, if you put the investor hat on, well, what's one of the biggest complaints you hear from investors, at least that I hear, is there's not enough deals, or there's no good deals, or whatever. And there's an abundance of deals. All the people you hear that have that mindset, that are doing well, that are investors, will always tell you there's an abundance of deals. I mean, there's off-market deals, there's sales by the owner deals. There's so many there's so many stuff, but it's about who you know, not necessarily what you know sometimes. And that's what I share with my clients. You got to look after the people looking after you. This isn't a typical real estate brokerage or real estate sales that we operate. We offer people deals. And over the last 10 years, a lot of the off-market stuff that I've done, a lot of the stuff I've done exclusively with a big developer or builder, has made people millions of dollars, including myself. And that's not only increased my net worth, I've earned that as income. And that goes back to becoming more valuable to people, and not as a person. We're all equal in the eyes of God, I believe, and we're all equal as human beings. but in terms of economics and being more valuable to the economy by what you can offer. And I think that's a lot of our generation, the millennials, Gen Zs. I think those of you listening might be lacking that, lacking that accountability and hoping that the government or someone is going to come by and just take care of you. So no, I don't subscribe to that. And I said to myself, we can do it. There's all these programs. There's all these things where we can go to another province. We can offer financing in another province, which we've done. And so I just wanted to become, bigger and bigger. If I was going to be limited to the geographic location where I'm living now, I mean, how am I any different than the other Toronto realtors or brokerages that are doing something similar to what I'm doing?
Yeah, no, and that is, being able to differentiate yourself and the ways in which you add value to others, being able to be a valuable individual to other people, whether through whatever type of exchange you can have, I think is always something that's always really, really important. I appreciate you also giving us more of the context in terms of why you also are interested in continuing to be able to look just beyond your backyard in terms of the value that you're adding. One of the things that I did forget to mention, and I want us to get into the Going Long Final Three, but you also recently have written a book. And so yes. I know that maybe you can talk to us a little bit about that, because anytime I have an author here or someone who has been a part of a book, maybe you could talk to us a little bit about the book, and also to what was the inspiration for you of being able to want to do something like that.
So the mechanism of Millennials' Choice is as follows. This was the thing I told myself at 19. I'm going to earn commissions and I'm going to buy more property. And I've done that every single year. And so Millennials' Choice is just growing that from an individual Matthew Ablakan realtor to now this organization that one day I could probably sell. And so I do a lot of things to try to stand out from the crowd. And I learned that in Teachers College. We had an abundance of teachers here where you couldn't even find a job if you were a new teacher. So I had an old mentor of mine say, while I was in university, saying to me, you got to stand out, do something to stand out, work with at-risk youth, work with, groups that most teachers don't want to work in. And so I took that and applied it to real estate. So Millennials' Choice, we do a lot of things that are different for marketing and branding. And over the last couple of years, I wrote a book, co-authored a book with Kevin Harrington and Robert G. Allen, and I read every single day. And one of the game-changing moments for me was right outside of university. The first condo is built. I'm living in that condo, and I go to a MLM, multi-level marketing event, which had a bunch of speakers. Like Donald Trump was there, like Darren Hardy was there, and Darren Hardy. The first time I learned about him and heard him, he was promoting his book, The Compound Effect. And I had not read a book, I don't think I had, outside of high school that, really spoke to me, and it was about personal development and it wasn't school related. I had not read a book outside of high school that had to do with any of that stuff. So now 23, 24, I'm starting to really find myself and find my groove, and then dealing with problems with my parents, dealing with all kinds of issues that I was very unhappy. And then all of a sudden, Darren Hardy's telling a story about how his father, who he could never please, just dissed him when he was walking him through this new house he bought in California on the hills. And then he realized that he can never make his dad really proud. It's really up to his dad to make himself proud. And so that kind of really resonated with me. I bought the book, absorbed it, read it. And then that year, I read so many books. Personal development was something I was introduced to, a concept that finally I can frame and say, okay, this is what personal development means. And that's, the rest is history. So I said, I've never stopped reading since then. I read every single day. And I said, I want to write this book. I want to talk about my first 4 properties and, how it got me there and my journey getting licensed, and a little bit background about my parents and things like that. And I want to gift it to obviously whoever wants it, whoever's listening and watching. They can get the free ebook version. If they're ever in Toronto, I'll happily give them a hard copy. And now this, for the realtors in the room or listening and the mortgage agents, all that, this is now, Billy, my new business card. So I have a virtual background, hard to see, but that's my new business card. When I walk into a meeting, we don't sell these books. These are always for free. I always give it to whoever I'm meeting with, whether that's a builder, whether that's a politician, whether that's whoever, I always gift them the book. So that's how we stand out. One of the ways we stand out now.
Fantastic. So, having that effect on yourself, and then that giving you the vision and the motivation and the drive to actually be able to go out and share your thoughts with others. And you've replaced your business card with your book. And so we'll definitely give you an opportunity to talk more about how the Going Long family can pick that up. And you know what, we kind of got to get into the Going Long final three, Matthew, because that's kind of where we are right now in the conversation. But the thing is, I never ask any of our special guests, and today you're our special guest, the Going Long final three, unless you tell me that you're ready. So, are you ready?
I'm ready.
You were born ready, man. I had no doubt. Absolutely no doubt. No, here we go. So we started with you over in Toronto, and I'd like to bring things back over to this side of the pond now because, although I'm originally from Columbus, Ohio, this is now my adopted side of the pond. So help me and the entire Going Long family understand, Matthew, what is your favorite European city that you've either visited or still on your bucket list to visit?
So I've only visited Portugal. My wife is Portuguese. We've only been to Europe once.
Hang on.
Tell me.
Hang on a second.
Tell me.
No, you visited Portugal. I think that's awesome. Don't say only visited. You visited Portugal.
First world problems, right? Portugal was amazing. I love the lifestyle of it. I love the European lifestyle, and Portugal really, showed a lot of that. And the city that I love the most, it's more the tourist side of it, but Algarve in Portugal is
it's beautiful down there. Beautiful down there. Yeah.
But one of the cities that I would love to visit, that's on the bucket list in Europe, is I definitely wanted to go. It's not a city, but it's a country, Italy. I've always wanted to go to Italy and check that out.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I lived there. We can talk about that later on, but cool. So, well, you have to, but so would you say are you like more of the South? So maybe somewhere like a Naples, or maybe like Rome or up north, Milan?
So, you know what? Rome is obviously, I want to go see the Vatican and all these different kinds of, monuments. I love that. I'm a history guy. I love learning about history, but definitely places like Naples. I want to go to like the authentic places. That's what I like to do.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to add it as Naples.
Naples.
That's okay.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Awesome. All right, cool. So here's the other thing, Matthew. This has a lot to do with the experience that I've seen with people that are really successful. And, I would consider you as someone who's very successful. Early on, you had the vision that the things you wanted to do. You've taken consistent, massive action to be able to do that. You've impacted lives, across the globe. I'm going to go and dare to say beyond Canada. And so one of the things that, just because I've been exposed to a lot of really successful people, and hopefully you will also agree with me, Matthew, that, one of the things that separates people that are really successful apart from everybody else is that they, unlike most people, when they are, when you set your mind to something as someone who's successful, you go out, you build a plan, you execute the plan perfectly the very first time, which allows you to go much faster than most people in terms. I think I just made a mistake. Matthew, sorry about that.
Let's repeat it.
I'm just kidding. It's a joke.
Oh, I was like, where are we going with this?
Yeah, exactly. Matthew, you're so cool, calm, and collected, man. I love it. This is just very cool. No, this is I like to have fun here. I like to have fun. So, and the entire Going Long, they know that about me already. Of course, most people that are really, really successful, Matthew, and you know this, and I appreciate you not blowing the whole thing up, but most of the times we don't get things right. They don't get things right the first time or the second time or the 18th time. Many times, those people that are successful, you know what? Because they're trying so many different things so often, they usually make more mistakes than most people, like 20 to 50 times more mistakes. All the time, right? So, and this is no joke. The first part was kind of a joke, and it's just like my little inside joke, and I like to have fun here. But the reality is, those people that are successful, every single time they make a relevant mistake, this is real. When the mistake is relevant, every single time I've seen, they stop without fail. They learn from the mistake or the learning opportunity, or however you want to call it. And then without a doubt, every single time they put different strategies, tactics, and actions in place to minimize the probability of that exact same thing happening again today. So I don't really want you to dwell on the problem or the mistake or the learning opportunity that you had, but what was the lesson? Like, what was the one lesson that you know that you learned that someone today in the Going Long family needs to hear so that they can minimize the probability of that exact same thing happening to them?
Yeah, for sure. And sometimes even the 18th time is not enough and you never figure it out. I was like, this guy doesn't make any mistakes and he just gets it right on the first time.
Who is this dude? What's he talking about?
I was like, I gotta drink what he's drinking. But one of the concept that I learned these last couple of years, not that I learned it wasn't something new, but that really stuck with me after making a really big mistake, a massive mistake, massive setback, was you got to bet on yourself. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that we get impacted by is just the opinion of others. Now, sometimes people, I hear them say, like even myself, I say this all the time. I don't care what people think. And that's fine. Maybe you don't, but are you listening to the right news? Are you watching the right people? And when I say news, to me, this podcast is news. Not CNN, not these other places. So who's really in your ear and influencing really how you think? Because that's what it comes down to. And then how you think will control how you feel, which controls how you act. Yep. So I made a decision. It was a wrong decision, setback, failure, lesson learned, won't be repeated again. But the concept that I got from that was just bet on yourself. You've already proven to yourself that you can achieve what it is you want to achieve. Massive action, you're creating companies, you're investing, creating millionaires, you're doing all this stuff. So just keep betting on yourself. And maybe you're still waking up sometimes and looking at the popcorn ceiling and saying, this is not where I want to go today, not what I want to do today, but it's leading you to where you want to go, your final destination or the desired destination or desired person that you're going to become. So I would say just bet on yourself, really bet big. There's nothing outside of your ability and your scope. If you need to learn something, it's all online. We have Professor Google at our fingertips now. And it's just about being confident and being able to bet on yourself. Don't wait for other people to come by and do something for you or give you the right advice or whatnot. Everything is available. You got to learn. You got to understand knowledge is the potential of power. Surround yourself with the right people and then rinse and repeat and learn from your mistakes.
Rinse and repeat. I love that. Learn from the mistakes, but most importantly, bet on yourself. So I appreciate that lesson that you learned, that you paid full price for, and you're helping to pass that along to someone else at a discount. Yeah. So, and lastly, it's really, and we talked about earlier your book, and so you're going to give us a way to find out more about Achieve, Achieve Volume 2. And one of the things that I always like to kind of wrap things up with is also helping us. And you're someone who's an avid reader. You mentioned just a little bit ago, but what is the one book that you would recommend to us as we go away today with question number 3? What's that one book you'd recommend to the Going Long family?
There's a lot of good ones. I have my bookshelf to my left. I have another bookshelf at home. But one thing that I would definitely just say, one book that I would recommend is Acres of Diamond. I don't know if you've heard of that one, but basically the story in a nutshell, it's a very short read. And the story in a nutshell is the gentleman has, this land, these acres of diamonds. He doesn't know that there's diamonds underneath his land, but he hears about diamonds being relatively available where he lives. So he sells his land, goes off on this mission to find diamonds, never ends up finding them. Person who buys his land finds them. And so this guy lives with eternal regret and all that stuff. But the point is that you're already standing on top of your acres of diamonds. And that's what I mean by betting on yourself. Everything you need is already with you. It's already within you. It's with you. You just got to do it. And like Jim Rohn says, the things that are easy to do are also easy not to do. So getting up and exercising, it's easy to do. You're not going to do something that you're not going to lift a certain weight that you can't lift. But it's also easy to say, I'm going to skip it today. So that's a book I would recommend.
Okay. Acres of Diamond. And we're going to include that as well in the show notes. So really appreciate that. And, I'm just going to the beginning of the conversation, Matthew. I'm thinking, you're telling us this story. Your parents are, each on their own at different times, leave the Iraq, transferred from different places, different countries, and both eventually meet in Canada. You and your brother, as you mentioned before, both born in Canada. You recognized, hey, listen, even early on in life, you had an opportunity, even before you really knew it, because of what your parents were doing as entrepreneurs, right? As recently arrived entrepreneurs, they said, listen, we're going to go out. We're going to create the life not just for ourselves, but for our children. And you watched by osmosis, the buy low, sell high. You got to play with the Pokemon cards. You also recognize hey, listen, because you were inspired by your parents to go out and get the education, even though you weren't necessarily really all gung-ho about going out to get the formal, quote unquote, sit in the school and learn in front of a chalkboard. Well, eventually you realized that, hey, listen, you wanted to go through, you got your 2 different degrees, but somewhere along the way, there was somebody you recognized that, hang on a second, this person's actually making money while they sleep. I got to find out more about that. And so even during your college, you decided, hey, listen, you're going to go out, you're going to learn about this, the theory, but then you put it into practice. 19 years old, you're already out buying your very first investment property and getting your license, and decided that, hey, listen, you're going to continue to go that way. And now it's gone from just something that you were interested in to something that you're actually living. You're helping people all across Canada. And like I said before, I would dare say even across the globe, continuing to help to raise their level of education, helping them move from theory into practice. And you're doing that all under the constructs of Millennials Choice Group. And so I know that so many people are like, yeah, Billy, but just ask the most important question. So I'm going to ask it. Help us understand, what is the best way for the Going Long family to find out more about what you're doing, Matthew, more about what you have going on as well at Millennials Choice Group, so that we can get you in touch with one another?
Yeah, so I manage my own social accounts. The company has its own social accounts that are managed by somebody else. But if you guys want to connect with me, the most active account that I use is my Instagram at Matthew Ablakan, just first and last name. And if you guys want a copy of the book, you can visit financialfreedomclub.ca/ebook. Ebook is just one word, no hyphen. And Billy, I'll share that link with you later on. But yeah, connect with me on Instagram. Send me a DM. Let me know you heard me on the Going Long podcast.
All right. Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. So Matthew, listen, man, on behalf of the entire Going Long family, I just want to say thank you very much for deciding to join me here and invest your time with me and share a bit more of your story. So thank you very much.
And thanks for having me. Hopefully I'll be back on soon.
All right. Sounds great. And Matthew, if you give me just a couple seconds, I'm going to wrap things up and then give you your time back. So Going Long family, listen, Matthew left it all here. He shared, he didn't, no holds barred. He gave you everything you wanted to know. He even has given you the chance to pick up his book absolutely for free. We're going to include the link in the show notes. But most importantly, don't let this just be a conversation. As we said in the beginning, listen to it a couple times. Invite family, invite friends, talk about the concepts that Matthew shared. Maybe you're first generation in either an accredited investor, or maybe first generation living in a country, and you have certain things that this episode brought out. Talk about it, make it a reality. And while you're doing that, going from theory to practice, I'll be here preparing for the next conversation. So until then, go out and make it a great day. And thank you very much.